All right, welcome back to Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports. Rich Walsh along with Paul Zeise for tonight's Friday night show. And it wouldn't be a Friday night, Paul, without going to Pete on line one. What's up, Pete from Squirrel Hill? Nice to hear from you.
Hey, gentlemen, how are you tonight?
Good.
Rich, you two got to help me out. Do I need to get rid of my 20-inch Zenith TV and get a new one? You had that guy call last week again, you two, saying his wife lost a lot of respect for you guys because you're drinking beer on a set. Do I need to get two new role models?
Well, hey, we're still beer drinking on this set. We're not drinking.
What are they talking about? That you guys are bad role models? I don't understand that.
Hey, Pete, do you think we're good role models?
I think you're outstanding. Like I told you a long time ago, Rich, when I come back on the other side, if I can't come back as Mick Jagger, I want to come back as you.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Thanks a lot, Pete. Thanks for calling in. Let's go out to Fred out in North Huntington. How you doing, Fred?
Hi, how you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for calling.
Hey, I want to talk a little bit about the Pro Football Hall of Fame tomorrow. You know, they're going to announce their class coming up. And obviously Peyton Manning and I think Charles Woodson, I think they're both pretty much slam dunks. But I was wondering what you guys thought of maybe Alan Faneca getting in. I know obviously you got Tony Baselli, which kind of cancels one of them probably out here. But do you guys have any predictions as far as who you think might get in for the class? I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Hey,
guys.
thanks a lot, Fred. I really appreciate that. You know, I used to do these pregame shows with Ed Bouchette, who votes and is one of the guys that, you know, tries to get the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Pittsburgh people in. He goes up and speaks in front of the whole committee about why they should get in. And I know he did that for Alan Faneca a couple years ago, not last year. But I don't know how they did it this year. But he was always a guy that thought that Alan Faneca should get in. I think he should get in, too. I guess Tony Baselli, Paul, being there is going to potentially hurt him. I don't know if he gets in. I thought he was going to get in last year, Paul, but maybe he gets in this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be close. And the thing about it is, if you look at his resume versus Tony Baselli's, I don't even think it's close. I mean, I think Faneca definitely should be in. And I think the big thing is, who are the other guys that are there? Because what do they put in, five or six or whatever it is? You know, Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson, I think, are the two no-brainers, right? I mean, I think those two guys are definitely going to be in. After that, there's a whole lot of guys that, you know, are just like Faneca. So if there's ever going to be a year where he does get in, I'd assume that after waiting this long, he finally will get his turn tomorrow.
You know, and I would think this would be a good year to do it, Paul, just because all the Steelers that are getting in, they're combining in classes this year. I don't know if they're doing it 2 separate weekends. I think that's what they're doing, or they're 2 separate days or something. But, I mean, you're going to have all the Steelers that are getting in from last year's class with Troy Polamalu and Bill Cowher. And then potentially, you know, you have a guy like Alan Faneca. I mean, it could be a whole big weekend. And maybe the Hall of Fame committee, I know they're not the ones that are voting, but that would be a good thing for Canton, Ohio, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's neither here nor there. The big thing is he's a guy who deserves to be in. I mean, it's time. At what point do we say, okay, it's time for him to be in this Hall of Fame because he deserves to be there? I think if you know, what has hurt him a little bit is every year there's been a lot of guys who have probably had better resumes. I don't think that's the case this year. I think this is a year where he's clearly one of the top five, you know, one of the 5 best candidates.
So my question is, I know he wasn't a finalist this year, but Hines Ward, does he ever get in? Does he have Hall of Fame credentials?
No, and I don't think he is a Hall of Famer. I think he's a guy who's just on the outside of the Hall of Fame. And, you know, when you have to go to, well, but he's the best blocking receiver ever. I mean, if you have to go to blocking to make a case for a receiver, you've lost in my book, because that's, you know, I mean, are we going to talk about how Alan Faneca was a great receiver? No, we're not. His job was to block, and he was a great blocker. Well, you know, Hines Ward was a great receiver, but look at the guys that he's going to be compared to, and some of the guys that are going to be, you know, that are going to be retiring here. I mean, numbers-wise, he stacks up to an extent, but there's 3 guys right now in this, you know, that were semifinalists, and I forget who they are.
Well, Calvin Johnson, Torrey Holt, I think, is on the list.
Yes.
Those guys will get in before him.
Right, and Isaac Bruce, I think, or maybe one of the Colts
Reggie
guys.
Wayne.
Reggie Wayne, yeah, those three guys are all probably have better resumes than Hines Ward. So, and then you start seeing guys like Larry Fitzgerald, who's going to probably retire, and 5 years from now he'll come up, and there's going to be a number of other guys like that. I mean, I know Hines is a fan favorite, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
All right, let's go out to D in Huntington. How you doing, D? D, you there?
I'd like to know if you think that Le'Veon Bell will go back to the Steelers. Would they take him?
I don't think there's a chance. I think if there was a chance of him going back to the Steelers, they could have really used a running back this year. Don't you think it would have happened this year, Paul? At that point in time, I mean, they were hurting. I think at that time, James Conner was hurt too. I think that relationship's over. I don't think they can even mend that relationship.
Not just that. I haven't seen anything from Le'Veon Bell over the last 3 years that suggests he's anywhere close to the player that he used to be. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who made a ridiculously bad decision for his career. I don't care how anybody spends it, and there's not a single way you can say that that him leaving the Steelers was a good move. I mean, to me, here's a guy now who's almost irrelevant as a running back in the NFL.
It was definitely a good move for the Steelers because they would have committed a guaranteed almost the $45 million, but it was a $70 million deal I think they offered him, and that would look really bad.
I think if they had him the last 3 years, if there was continuity and he continued doing what he was doing, they probably would have they definitely would have made the playoffs the year that he sat out. They probably would not have missed the playoffs, and I think they'd have been a better team, and they would have been a better offense these last 3 years because one of the things about having Le'Veon Bell in the backfield is that Ben had to hand the ball off to him. And so, when he lost Le'Veon Bell and it became, a bunch of young guys or basically no-name guys, then all of a sudden Ben didn't have to worry about what they thought because they were all interchangeable.
Hey, I'm surprised we didn't get any Pirates phone calls today, Paul, yet. Maybe they'll come, but I do want to show you a tweet here, our Tri-State Office Furniture tweet of the night. It's about the Pirates, and it's about one of your colleagues over at the Fan. Josh Roundtree tweeted this today. And this is pretty amazing when you look at it. Highest salaries in baseball for 2021. They go over every player. Bauer, $40 million. Trout, $37 million. DeGrom and Cole both make $36 million. Strasburg, Greinke, Arenado, $35. Scherzer, $34. Verlander, $33. Price, Machado, $32. Kershaw, $31. And the entire Pittsburgh Pirates team comes in at 13 at $30 million. Can you imagine if they traded Polanco, where they would be? They'd be in the 20s or teens, right?
They would be at 19, yes. That's what's amazing is that the entire Pirates without Gregory Polanco is 19, which means you could probably add another 50 players, to that list that make more than the rest of the Pirates. Hey, it is what it is. That's what they're doing this year. They're, stripping it down, and they're going to go with young guys and prospects and guys who are pre-arbitration. And so that means you have a very low payroll.
Baseball has to be fixed. Do you think do you have any faith in the Pirates? Say they do strip down and say they do rebuild it the right way, but I still can't see this team ever having a $100 million payroll. I still think that they'll cheap out somehow.
Then we should. Then what are we doing? That's my bottom line. I mean, if you're not going to make at least that kind of investment when it's time to win, then what are you doing? Because you're never going to win. I mean, the whole thing is you've got to get back up to a reasonable number. And again, I'm not saying you got to go to 150 or 130, but if you're not willing to go to 100 when it's time to add a few players, I don't know what we're doing. We're wasting our time.
All right, we got to take a break. Back with more of your phone calls, some of your tweets. 412-575-2600 is the number right there. Give us a call. Couple lines open. Back in a couple minutes.